Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us once again for Beyond 2020, the vlog for event professionals who are curious about what is down the road for us once we get through this global pandemic. Today, I get to be joined by the charming Mr. Ryan Buds. Welcome here, Ryan. Thanks so much for taking some time to chat with me.
How are we doing, Alan? Thanks for having me all the way from California to Canada. What part of Canada are you in?
In Manitoba, right in the middle.
Very good. I've always said yes to every Canadian who's ever asked me to do a podcast or an interview or a blog because I know how delightful and polite they're going to be, as opposed to maybe some of my closer neighbors down here. So very, very cool. Big fan of Canada in general.
You know, Canada is abbreviated CA and California is abbreviated CA. So we're basically brothers.
Basically brothers. And I could very easily shave this into a mustache at any time. So
all right.
Even better.
Ryan, give us a 30-second overview on who you are and what's your place in the event industry.
Sure. I am a full-time virtual trivia host these days in the later half of 2020, and I've hosted about 4,000 trivia events in the last 10 years. Obviously, a lot of those physical, probably 250 virtual parties of all different shapes and sizes since the quarantine started. So very physical business, doing a lot of corporate parties at first, and then that kind of has turned into this whole new beast. And sometimes I'm doing as many as 6 or 7 parties in one day, which is awesome because of not having to go anywhere. And I had a crazy day a couple weeks ago where it was like party in Canada, party in El Salvador, party in California, party in Massachusetts, like all at different hours. And never, would I be able to globetrot even with the fastest jet to do all those in person. So in a weird way, it's opened a door for my very niche business to entertain small or large groups virtually with trivia.
Righto. Like what did your day-to-day look like pre-COVID, like 2019? What was life like then?
Sure. I had about 20 weekly locations around Southern California. So bars and breweries, some wineries, things like that I would host as many as I could myself, probably for 6, 7 a week. And then I had a few other hosts that were under me, just employees basically, that I would plug into the spots where I was maybe double or triple booked on a certain night. But yeah, about a handful of 20 bingo and trivia locations. Bingo has become pretty popular, at least down here in the last couple of years, where you could have some fun with a crew over 2 hours. And sometimes the people that don't want to play trivia are because they're like, I don't know anything, are like very eager to play bingo because they're like, oh, it's just numbers, boom, 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 or pictures. But I do work in a lot of trivia to the bingo as well. So there's lots of fun stuff to be done down here. But yeah, mostly trivia and bingo locations. And I would say between maybe 5 and 10 corporate parties a month on a really good month, mixed in with that. So, a weekend company party for an hour or two somewhere in Hollywood or something like that might be, on the docket. But since the quarantine started, just all virtual with a little spattering of some physical events that are starting to finally come back.
Okay, gotcha. So you're starting to see that kind of turnaround. That's kind of cool. So were you doing anything virtual prior to our situation?
I was not actually. I would say zero virtual anything. I didn't know what Zoom was until the beginning of this year. A fun stat I read was that, there were 2 million Zoom accounts in December, and in March there were 222 million. Because of how many people had to learn what that was and use it for work and everything. So I'd heard of Zoom. I knew that it was a video conferencing thing, but I had no real purpose to use it for anything. The closest thing I would have got to that was maybe some FaceTime stuff, or maybe doing like a live trivia thing on Facebook where I would just ask questions and maybe interact with the comments a little bit. But around the beginning of the quarantine, I saw a fellow trivia host in Florida, Orlando area, named Simon Time Trivia. Shout out to Simon Time Trivia down there. And he just had taken all his stuff and kind of set it up in his living room and was like, hey, we can't, all the bars are closed. I guess I'll just do this at home. And he had like a backdrop. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I guess I should do that too, because I'm I don't have anywhere to go. So I just kind of mimicked that live stream setup. And then I kind of, it evolved over the last 9 months into now I have a green screen and like a set part of the garage and an office, if you will. And, banners and tickers and all kinds of stuff on Facebook Live. I use StreamYard mostly for my live streams daily. And StreamYard's great. I think it's $20 a month, but it lets you do a lot of cool stuff. You could have guests on the show, and made the displaying of existing PowerPoints and questions and things that I already had very easy to show. Nice. So I saw some trivia hosts were doing like a weekly live stream, and I said, well, I'll try it. So I did like one, and it had this phenomenal response with just donations where people were like, this was right at the beginning of the quarantine. Nobody could go anywhere. So they were just like looking for something to do. And I made a ton in donations in the first couple of days. And I was like, maybe I'll do this every day. Maybe, there's some kind of demand for it. Yeah. So we're on about 240 days of doing the live stream. And I've done it pretty much every night in some form or another, minus maybe 5 or 6 nights when I was double booked or something. But there's always a free show that you can watch with me on, YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that.
All right. So what's your takeaway for the future? When like some people, they're wondering like, are we ever going to have events like we used to have them? Like when you look forward to the future, what do you see that brings you hope? What do you feel good about when it comes to the future?
Well, I feel good about somewhat mastering what a virtual event is so that I can always offer that as an option, which is great. It's, again, not something I never thought I think of, but if I'm doing a show in El Salvador and it's going to cost me $1,500 to fly there and back, and I can tell them, hey, I could just do this from home for half the rate, and they go, oh, okay, that kind of thing. I'm super excited about the possibility of always being able to offer that where I wouldn't have to travel, because I love traveling, but if I don't have to, especially with the ways of the world now, I don't want to. So I have 2 kids at home. I have a wife and 2 kids. They're 3 and 6 this weekend. Actually, their birthdays are coming up.
3 and 6 years old.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. How about that? So it's cool to be at home with them, and obviously everyone I feel like is spending a lot more time with their kids over these last months. But really physically getting to see them grow up every day, as opposed to going to an office and sitting somewhere and coming home and they're asleep by the time I get home and stuff like that. I do enjoy that quite a bit. So I'm excited about being able to offer some sort of virtual something until I'm dead, maybe. I don't know. I feel like that's always going to be an option now. And then but I do have hope that, especially with some stuff starting to open in California. California is one of the strictest. I don't know if you know about the US, but we have some of the strictest restrictions. And a restaurant a brewery, which was a main part of my venue business, can only be open during the hours that they have a food vendor. So in LA County, you can't just like sell beer. You can sell beer to go, but you have to, if you want to consume beer on the premises, there has to be a food truck there at the same time. Right. But that just got instated. So like before that, there was nothing they could do. They could only sell beer to go. So now we're finally getting to the point where people can maybe be open and have events and get people to come back. But then also you don't want to have too many people because they have all these limitations on the size of the amount of people that can be there. Right. So they're not exactly eager to hire a trivia host to come try and get a big crowd in, because they're just trying to get maybe a dozen people in for an hour, so it's strange, but we are getting closer to the time where we're starting to do that. And a few of my places that I'm kind of the closest with the owners and things are like, hey, let's get you back. Let's be the place that's doing that first. These people are aching to do it. So I have hopes that will kind of continue to kind of grow over, especially as we get into 2021. But I also have, I have this thought that some of these small towns, especially in America, I just don't think they care. So I think you're going to get a lot of, okay, cool, we can't do our wedding at your venue. Well, we're doing a big backyard wedding and anything goes. So I think that to some degree, you're going to have you're just going to have some flexibility in the normal venues that used to perform at. I think you're going to find some more guerrilla warfare type setups, which again, I'm kind of down for, just to switch it up. Yeah. I did a show at Downtown Disney, which is in Disneyland. It's an area where they have all these shops and stores and stuff. And the rules were so strict. It was like I couldn't bring anything in to do the show. And I'm like, they hired me to do this show for this wedding last weekend. They're like, can't bring any of your speaker, no microphone, no mic stand. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So then I had to host this show. I had to stand in one place with my mask on and scream through the mask with no amplification. So, the bride and the groom are just like, hey, whatever they say, that's what we have to do. And it was a nightmare. And it was just really tough to like project. Luckily, it was only about 30 people on a small patio. But I mean, I took it off to like scratch my face. The guy's like, put that mask on. And I'm like, come on, man. I'm nowhere near anybody. So I get the regulations, but I think Disney is one of the places that is the strictest because they're losing, I would say, easily upwards of $1 billion with just Disneyland being closed for 9 months. So maybe billions of dollars at this point. But so I get it. I get everybody's concern with everything. I get that there's a really no way to regulate a lot of these things. So they're doing the best they can. But if my job was to tell somebody like, put your mask back on just on repeat all day, I would have to quit. I would just have to quit that job. It would be too intense,
Oh boy, we were supposed to go to Disney World in June. So we obviously put a pin in those plans, and then we were following the news like, oh, it sounds like it's going to open up in September.
I think Disney World is pretty open. I think all the parks are somewhat open. Disneyland is like, because of California, is like completely locked in. I think Disneyland is suing the state of California because they're like, listen, we have Disney World's open, So again, it's just a lot of turmoil down there. But as a host, you just kind of do whatever people need you to do at the spur of the moment. So we made that show work. It was fun. They still got to play. It was like contactless smartphone trivia. I use a service called CrowdPurr. I don't know if you're familiar with CrowdPurr, but it's a great smartphone service. It does cost, you pay for it monthly or yearly. So it's not super, super inexpensive or anything. But the price tag really solves every problem I could ever possibly have with a crowd size. If I have a crowd of 5 or a crowd of 500, it works the same. So I love that. But CrowdPurr is kind of my main source for trivia shows, but also doing some bingo stuff and some game show recreation stuff like Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Family Feud, all our groups on Zoom. Those have been going well too.
Nice. Awesome. Well, it's good to hear that, that we can still be finding a way to be connecting with audiences, regardless of what the actual situation is around us, and that where, I don't know, it's a cliche, but where there's a will, there's a way, right? People are still out there. People still want to connect, and they just need professionals to make it happen for them.
Yep. There's still definitely a need for everybody in the event planning, event hosting, the performing business. For sure, that whole industry still needs those people, because especially now more than ever, because they need some of that expertise if they're doing the guerrilla style backyard wedding. They're like, ooh, how do we even do this? They don't have the guidance of like the venue who's like, this is where we usually stand, and this is how this person usually presents this ceremony or whatever it is. I think they need us more than ever because we've done that so many times. You talk about putting in that 10,000 hours. I forget who said that famously, but when you do 10,000 hours of something, you become an expert on it. And, I've definitely done 10,000 hours of trivia hosting, and probably close to 10,000, if not more, of just stand up before I got into trivia, and kind of throughout a little bit of the last 10 years of hosting trivia. So those two things together, I'm kind of ready for any situation. And if everything goes to hell, I kind of have, I've never been in a situation where I'm like, wow, I'm just staring and going, what do we do now? There's always something you could figure out to do. So like you said, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for just sharing your perspective and what is bringing you hope for beyond, not even just the future, but where there's hope right now. Really appreciate that. I know other event professionals who are trying to find their feet will appreciate it too. So thanks for taking the time. I know that you've got a couple of shows coming up that I want to let you get to. But feel free to say hi to El Salvador or wherever it is that you're going around the world.
Very good. Thank you so much, Alan, for having me on the show today. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Happy to help anybody out for free whenever I can. TriviaWithBuds.com. That's BUDDS, TriviaWithBuds.com. Also, my email address is just RyanBuds@gmail.com, RyanBuds@gmail. Thanks a lot, Alan.
You bet. Thank you, Ryan. Take care.
Cheers.